The council table was empty. 1 second earlier, the Quan's succession pin had rested beneath a narrow gold light. Now the light burned over bare stone, while Nalia's phone held the frozen image of a woman with her eyes, her mother's mouth, and Jaeho's stolen past.
That is the girl I was supposed to marry.
Jaeho's confession had barely left him when steel bolts struck inside the chamber walls. The ceremonial lights turned warning white. Mira rose, but Nalia ignored her and looked at Jaeho. His hand hovered near the torn place above his heart. Recognition moved through him like pain searching for a name. Nalia's phone rang again. The woman answered before anyone touched the screen.
My name is Zola Doom.
Her face appeared fully. The scar crossing her left eyebrow caught the vehicle light. An identical onyx locket rested against her black dress. Beside her, Amara sat upright in dark plum, alive, frightened, and watching both daughters through the same screen. Anger forced air back into Nalia's lungs.
Move the camera closer to Mama.
Zola's expression stayed controlled.
You always did begin with an order.
I began with proof. Amara leaned forward. The bruise near her temple was visible, but her eyes were clear.
Nalia, I am alive. Are you being held?
Amara glanced at Zola. That hesitation frightened Nalia more than a scream.
No.
The words struck the chamber like another lock.
You entered that vehicle willingly?
I entered because the route back to the estate was compromised.
And you could not call me?
Amara closed her eyes. Zola answered for her.
Our mother prefers survival plans that exclude the people expected to survive them.
Mira stepped toward the central circle.
Remove that woman from the transmission.
Zola lifted the succession pin. Every black screen awakened. The council members saw themselves from ceiling cameras, trapped inside their own monument to authority. Another feed showed the outer gate's ceiling. Mira's voice thinned.
That authority belongs to the Quan's successor.
No. Zola's smile held no warmth.
It belonged to the boy you erased.
Jaeho staggered. A corridor returned inside his mind. Cold mist. Zola's hand locked around his while a steel door descended. He heard her counting and heard himself promising something the suppression system had stolen. Nalia saw his body recognize the voice before his mind could protect him.
Tell me the truth.
Her words came out frighteningly steady.
Did you love her?
The council became obscenely attentive. Men who had ignored kidnapped women leaned forward for romantic damage. Jaeho looked at Zola, then faced Nalia without searching for safety. Yes. The word cut cleanly because he did not hide it. Nalia's stomach dropped, but she refused to let the room enjoy it. She faced the council members, watching her pain like a final ceremony. You may all sit back. My sister and I are not an inheritance dispute. One councilman lowered his eyes. Another studied the table. Camille's mouth tightened with approval. Zola's gaze sharpened. You think I came for him? I think everyone here has spent 16 years deciding what women came for. Jaeho moved toward Nalia and stopped before touching her. I remember loving her. I do not remember enough to know what I promised. Zola raised the pin. You promised me this. With one turn of her locket, the gold inlay beneath the council table opened. A recorded transfer spread across the stone, authenticated by Jaeho's succession pin and a second witness key. Teenage Jaeho appeared through static. If the council altered his memory, confined either daughter of Amara Doom, or forced him to surrender the succession, emergency authority would pass to Zola. The recording ended with his younger voice. If I forget, do not let them tell you I chose them. With one sister holding Jaeho's forgotten promise, and the other standing beside the man he chose in public, the truth is about to become more dangerous than the Empire itself. Whether you followed Nalia here from Part 1 or found her tonight, subscribe to Afro-Korean Love Tales Hub. Your subscription tells us these premium stories are reaching you and helps us keep bringing them to life. Nobody moved when the recording disappeared. The pin had not been stolen tonight. Jaeho's public surrender had activated a transfer created before Mira removed Zola from his memory. The twin locket signal completed it. It was Jaeho's unfinished choice. Mira reached for the control beneath her chair. Nothing happened. Zola noticed. "Please keep trying. The council deserves to watch tradition discover it has been unplugged." A guard studied the ceiling like architecture was safer than politics. Nalia hated how badly she needed that small spark of humor. Jaeho did not defend the transfer. "What will you do with the authority?" "First, I will enter the room you taught to forget me." The chamber doors opened without a guard touching them. Cold morning air moved through the gap. Zola entered in the black dress from the call, the pin above her heart and the second locket at her throat. Amara walked beside her. Nalia had imagined finding her mother in 100 impossible ways. None included another daughter holding her arm. She crossed the marble floor before caution caught her. Amara opened both arms. Nalia stopped beyond them. The hurt on Amara's face was real. So was the choice she had made. "You let me bury you. I let them believe I was dead. I was 13. There was no difference." Zola came to Nalia's side, close enough to claim the words. "She let me become a rumor. You at least received a coffin." Amara flinched. Jaeho approached Zola but stopped several steps away. "May I come closer?" Anger remained in her face, but grief entered beside it. "No." Jaeho obeyed. The refusal landed without argument or wounded pride. It repaired nothing, but it proved the man before her was not the family that had erased her. Mira recovered her voice. "This performance has no legal standing. The girl was unstable then, and she is unstable now." Zola turned. "Thank you for preserving your habit of confessing inside insults." Mira crushed her carved ring against her palm. Amara stepped between them. "Do not provoke her." Both daughters looked at her with the same exhausted disbelief. Nalia's voice softened. "Mama, did you arrange their marriage?" Amara looked from Jaeho to Zola. "Yes." She had created the agreement because Jaeho and Zola together could verify the archive records. Their union would place one witness inside the succession and keep the other beyond Mira's direct control. What began as strategy became love before the adults understood how completely the teenagers had chosen each other. Jaeho remembered Rain above the archive wing and Zola laughing because his carefully planned escape ended at a locked laundry door. He had claimed the Kwan family owned half the city. She had asked why a man with half a city could not defeat one door handle. Warmth reached his face. Nalia felt it like a bruise. Zola saw that too. "I did not come to take him from you. You cannot take a person." For the first time, Zola's control cracked. "Good. At least one of us was raised knowing that." Amara lowered her head. The sisters had found their first agreement, and it was an accusation against their mother. A secure alarm sounded beneath the council table. Choi checked the evidence drive and found an unauthorized transmission moving through the protected testimony passage. The false Amara was returning. The nearest screen filled with the protected room. The woman who had worn Amara's face stood there without the replica hairpin. Her braid was unraveling, and her borrowed voice was gone. "You were instructed to remain hidden." She raised the hairpin. "I was instructed to disappear once the council believed me." A compartment opened beneath its shell. Inside rested an analog strip and memory chip. Choi's hand closed around his ring. "That device was transmitting before we reached the estate." "It was also recording." The woman looked toward Zola. "She opened the passage before Mira's guard could remove me." Nalia's attention snapped to her sister. Zola did not deny it. The woman placed the chip against the testimony room reader. "Arden changed my face. Mira chose the memories. But neither of them knew Amara kept the original audio inside the hairpin they copied." Jaeho went still. The woman's eyes found him through the camera. "I know what you promised Zola. I also know what she promised you." The screen turned black. The black screen reflected every face in the chamber. Nalia turned toward Zola. "What did you promise him?" Zola kept her gaze on the dead transmission.
Something I failed to keep.
The answer carried too much grief to be performance. Jaeho stepped nearer without crossing the distance she had denied him.
Play the recording.
Choi restored the testimony feed. The false Amara placed the memory chip against the reader again, but Mira rose before the file opened.
That woman is an Arden fabrication.
The woman looked almost amused. You selected my bedtime stories, my childhood memories, and which side of my scalp should ache. Please do not become modest now. If you are still watching, drop the emoji that best describes what Nalia should be feeling right now. Then tell us your location and the time you are watching, because the next truth will divide this family before it has any chance to heal. Camille's expression sharpened. Miles's father lowered his eyes for the first time. The recording began beneath a storm of static. 17-year-old Jaeho appeared inside the archive corridor, one arm around Zola's shoulders. She was younger, her torn sleeve darkened, but she remained firmly upright. A steel door shook behind them. Teenage Jaeho pressed his forehead against her hand.
If we leave this room free, I will marry you because I choose you.
Zola's younger voice came through more clearly.
And if they take that choice from you?
I give you the succession authority, not the marriage, the authority. The room seemed to contract around adult Jaeho. The recording continued. Zola fastened the pin above his heart and made him repeat the distinction. Love could not be transferred like property. Power could, if power was the only thing keeping the archive open. Then she made her own promise. If they make you forget me, I will not drag you back by the wound. I will protect the evidence, find my sister, and return only when both of us can choose without them. Nalia looked at Zola.
You knew about me. I knew there was a younger girl with the other key. I did not know where Mama hid you.
Amara's face tightened.
I hid both of you from each other.
The confession cut deeper because no enemy had forced it. Nalia faced her mother.
Start at the beginning, and this time do not protect me from it.
Amara looked toward the council as though 16 years of silence had finally become heavier than exposure. The archive program had started as trauma treatment. Mira wanted fear removed from heirs before public succession. Arden saw a profitable weapon. Choi's father designed the locks because he believed controlled memory could prevent war inside powerful families. Amara discovered the treatments were being used to remove hesitation, loyalty conflicts, and inconvenient witnesses. She copied the records. When the council learned what she had done, she arranged the agreement between Jaeho and Zola. The legal marriage would have placed Zola inside the family, but the real purpose was witness protection. Jaeho would hold the succession pin, Zola would hold the second locket. Neither system could erase the evidence without both of them.
What about me?
Nalia asked. You were 7. I was still your daughter. Amara's composure broke. You were the child I could still move without the council noticing. Zola's voice went cold. That is a graceful way to say you chose which daughter would remember you. Amara accepted the blow. She had placed Nalia with trusted guardians beyond the Quan network and left her the first locket. Zola remained inside the plan because she already knew the archive mechanisms and refused to abandon Jaeho. When the escape failed, Amara made a final decision. She allowed the authorities to declare her dead. She sent Zola through an underground network with the second locket. Then she erased every trail connecting the sisters. Nalia stared at her.
You were alive all those years.
Yes.
You knew I believed you were buried.
Yes.
You knew I believed I had no sister.
Amara drew a shaking breath.
Yes.
Zola looked away, but tears brightened her eyes. The sisters had spent half their lives grieving different versions of the same woman. Jaeho spoke quietly.
Where was Zola?
Amara answered that the network broke apart after Arden discovered one of its roots. Zola was moved repeatedly and eventually held under false identities by people who claimed they were keeping her beyond Mira's reach. Zola gave a small, humorless smile.
Protection develops an impressive vocabulary when nobody wants to say captivity.
She had escaped 3 years earlier. Since then, she had been rebuilding the archive trail, finding witnesses, and searching for Nalia without alerting the council. Nalia touched her locket.
You found Mama first. I found the vehicle moving her back toward Mira. And instead of calling me, you took her. I did call you. You appeared in shadow and stole a succession pin. Zola considered that. My introduction suffered from unnecessary confidence. A startled sound escaped Naya before she covered it with one hand. Even Nalia nearly smiled, but the hurt returned too quickly. Jaeho asked why Zola waited until tonight to reveal herself.
Because you chose Nalia in public. Nalia's eyes narrowed. Zola continued before the meaning could become cruel. Jaeho's surrender proved the old transfer would activate. More importantly, his public choice proved Mira no longer controlled every decision he made. I needed to know whether the man she loved was still the heir who obeyed the room. And what did you decide? Jaeho asked. That you are learning to leave doors open. The restored recording advanced. Teenage Zola sat beside Jaeho inside a service passage. Her sleeve was bandaged. She took a narrow metal tool and scratched the hinge of her locket. Then she made the same mark on the second one. If we are separated, these scratches show where the witness keys align. Teenage Jaeho asked what alignment would do. Zola looked directly at him. It ends the succession. Mira moved so quickly her chair struck the stone behind her. Choi stepped between her and the controls. The recording cut off. The two scratches were not damage. They were instructions. Nalia and Zola looked down at their lockets at the same time. Mira's voice filled the chamber. Those keys cannot be joined. Zola turned toward her. You have spent 16 years ensuring that. The meaning landed across every council tier. The system had never feared one daughter with evidence. It feared both daughters verifying each other. Nalia moved closer to Zola, not in trust, not yet, in recognition. Miles's father laughed from the investigator line. You are assuming the second mechanism still exists. Miles removed his inherited ring. He knows it does. The elder Arden's smile disappeared. Miles placed the ring beside the evidence drive. A faint light appeared inside the black stone. Access records unfolded across the screen, connecting his father to Nalia's apartment surveillance, the medical facility, the false Amara program, and a final command issued less than an hour earlier. The command targeted the Quan Council chamber. Camille read the route first. He sent something here before we returned. Every eye turned toward the empty succession table. A mechanical sound answered from beneath it. The gold-inlaid center began to rise. A black mechanism emerged where the pin had rested, holding two oval recesses and a third slot shaped for an Arden ring. Choi's calm disappeared. Move away from it. The elder Arden smiled again. Too late. Nalia's locket heated against her chest. Zola's answered with a white pulse. The mechanism had recognized both sisters standing within the same circle. Jaeho moved between Nalia and the table without touching her. Zola stepped to the opposite side, shielding Amara. Choi studied the rising locks. This is not the witness release. What is it? Nalia asked. The separation protocol. A transparent barrier dropped around the central circle. Nalia, Jaeho, and Zola were trapped inside. Amara struck the glass from the outside, while the council doors sealed again. The third slot began searching for Miles's ring. Miles snatched it back, but the signal had already copied. A countdown appeared as a shrinking ring of light with no readable digits. Zola's control vanished one system at a time. Mira sat down very slowly. You believed the council feared your testimony, she told the sisters. It feared what the building would do when you finally stood together. The floor divided beneath Nalia and Zola. The chamber was trying to separate them again. The floor opened along a black seam. Nalia's right foot slid toward the widening gap, but Jaeho caught her forearm and pulled her back. Across the circle, Zola dropped one hand to the marble and braced herself as the platform beneath her began moving in the opposite direction. The chamber was not trying to kill them. It was trying to place each sister inside a separate lock. Do not let the floor complete the split, Choi warned through the barrier. Zola pressed her locket against the glass.
Useful advice. Would you also like to suggest remaining calm? Calm is optional. Alignment is not.
Nalia pulled her own locket free. The scratches beside both hinges flashed in matching intervals. Jaeho looked from one mark to the other. They are not only alignment points, they are directional. The platform carrying Zola rotated clockwise. Nalia's turned against it. Amara struck the outside panel.
Turn the lockets opposite the floor.
Nalia stared at her mother.
You knew this existed? I knew what it was meant to prevent.
Zola's laugh carried no humor.
Another comforting distinction.
The gap widened. Nalia moved to the edge of her platform. Zola mirrored her from the other side. Between them, the black mechanism rose higher, its twin recesses glowing like open eyes.
On 3,
Nalia called. Zola's eyebrow lifted.
You were always impatient. So I have been told. 1.
The chamber lights dimmed.
2.
Mira gripped the arms of her chair.
3.
Both sisters turned their lockets against the motion of the floor. The mechanism screamed. The platform stopped less than an arm's length apart. A narrow bridge of gold light formed between them, but it held only when Nalia and Zola kept their lockets aligned. Jaeho stepped back, giving the sisters the center. The building had spent 16 years waiting to divide them. It had no answer for cooperation. Choi called to Miles. Your ring opened the 3rd slot. It can close it. Miles approached the barrier while his father watched from the investigator line. The elder Arden's voice remained polished. Put the ring into the mechanism, and the system will release them. Miles looked at the black stone in his palm. Nalia remembered another night when he had held a promise disguised as protection. She saw the doubt cross his face and waited for him to choose without using her fear as permission. Camille stepped beside him.
Your father has never offered a door without charging someone else for the key.
Miles nodded once. He handed the ring to Choi instead. The elder Arden's composure cracked.
You do not understand what you are surrendering.
Miles faced him. For once, that is the reason I am doing it. Choi examined the inner edge of the ring. A second groove ran beneath the visible setting, too narrow to notice unless the stone was turned backward. His father's ring carried the same groove. The two rings were not separate credentials. Together, they formed a recording circuit. Choi held Miles's ring against his own inherited key. A hidden file opened across every council screen. Mira's voice filled the chamber. She ordered Arden to erase Jaeho's promise but preserve his fear. She ordered the Dume sisters separated because 2 witnesses could authenticate one another. Then Arden asked what should happen if either daughter returned. Mira answered without hesitation.
Make the survivor look unstable. Powerful families are forgiven for cages when the woman inside appears difficult.
Zola's hands tightened around her locket. The bridge of light flickered. Nalia saw fury pull her sister toward the same abyss that had swallowed Mira.
Do not let her decide who you become now.
Zola's eyes stayed on the older woman.
She already decided 17 years of it. Then she has taken enough.
The bridge steadied. Choi turned both rings backward. The 3rd slot released. The transparent barrier rose, but the central mechanism remained active. Miles's father stepped away from the investigator line and reached for the control at his wrist. Camille caught the movement first. She lifted her access card, severing the signal before his device completed the command. The black mechanism opened. Inside rested a narrow cylinder containing the original deletion ledger. The elder Arden stared at it. Camille's voice was almost gentle.
You should have designed fewer emergency exits.
Naya looked at the ceiling.
Please do not encourage wealthy men to treat architecture as a personality.
A few council members failed to hide their reaction. Choi removed the cylinder. The ledger authenticated every memory alteration through 3 sources: Quan authorization, Arden procedure, and Choi access engineering. His father had added a final safeguard before his death. Every erased record had been mirrored into the rings, so no single family could destroy it alone. Choi looked at Mira. My father obeyed you. He also expected you to betray him. Mira's expression hardened. Then cowardice was his only honest inheritance. No. Choi placed his ring beside Miles's. Suspicion was. The false Amara reappeared on the testimony screen.
This time, she had removed the artificial silver extensions from her hair. Without Amara's borrowed styling, she looked less like a ghost and more like a woman who had survived being turned into one.
She gave her real name to the investigators. She described the surgeries, rehearsals, threats, and Mira's instructions. She admitted her own choices without pretending coercion erased every consequence. Zola had offered her safe passage in exchange for the original recording, but the decision to testify was hers. Mira rose.
You expect this council to accept the word of an imposter?
The witness met her gaze through the camera.
You accepted me when I lied for you.
No one came to Mira's defense. Amara entered the central circle after the barrier cleared. She stood between her daughters, but did not reach for either of them.
I have one record left.
From inside her braided crown, she removed the original antique silver hairpin. The replica had carried Jaeho's audio. The real one held Amara's complete witness statement, recorded before the archive fire. She placed it beside the ledger. The screens showed Amara naming every architect of the program, including herself.
Nalia's breath caught.
Amara confessed that she had built the first Locket protocol. She believed dividing truth between her daughters would make them impossible to control. Instead, it made their separation the system's central objective.
I designed a protection that required my children to remain apart.
Zola's voice shook.
You built the first cage. Yes.
Amara did not defend herself. The admission landed harder than another excuse could have. The witness mechanism beneath the succession table recognized the real hairpin, both lockets, and the mirrored rings. A final panel opened. No weapon waited inside. A legal transfer did. The authority currently held by Zola could freeze every Quan and Arden asset connected to the program, dissolve the succession council, and release the records into independent custody. It could also grant her total emergency control over the Empire until she chose a successor. Mira understood first.
She will keep it, she told Nalia. After everything taken from her, she will call possession justice.
Zola lifted the succession pin. Every screen changed to await her command. Jaeho did not ask her to surrender it. Amara did not ask her to forgive.
Nalia stepped beside her sister and looked at the empire that had survived by keeping them strangers. What do you want? She asked. Zola stared at the authority in her hand. For 1 minute, she whispered, I want them to be afraid of me. Nalia understood the temptation because she had felt it whenever someone controlling her lost the advantage. Take the minute, she said. Just do not mistake their fear for your freedom. Zola looked at Jaeho. He stood without the pin, title, or demand that once defined him. The authority is yours because I gave it freely. What you become with it must also be free. Mira laughed. Freedom is the story powerless people tell themselves. Zola faced the screens.
She froze the program's accounts, blocked property transfers, released the evidence to independent investigators, and created a protected fund for victims of memory alteration. Then the system offered one command: accept permanent control. Zola's thumb hovered above the locket reader. The chamber watched the injured daughter stand one movement away from inheriting every instrument that had harmed her. Nalia did not reach for her hand. This choice could not be rescued from her. Zola pressed the succession pin into the final slot. The chamber announced that permanent authority had been accepted. Mira smiled. It was the first expression of triumph she had allowed herself since Zola entered the room. There, at last, honesty. You did not return for justice. You returned because you wanted what belonged to him. Zola kept her hand on the succession pin. Read the next line. The system continued. Permanent authority granted the holder one unrestricted command over the structure that created it, including the right to preserve, transfer, or terminate the succession itself. Mira's smile vanished. Zola looked at Nalia. I needed ownership for exactly 1 minute. Then she gave the command. Dissolve it. The gold lines across the chamber went dark in sequence. Every council chair lost its private controls. The elevated seat lowered until it stood level with the others. The Quan accounts tied to the memory program transferred into the protected victims fund Zola had already created. Independent investigators received the archive, the deletion ledger, the access records, and every mirrored copy beyond the reach of either family. The succession pin released from the slot and fell into Zola's palm. It was still gold. It was no longer authority. Mira rose so abruptly that two investigators moved toward her. "You cannot dissolve blood."
"No,"
Zola answered. "Only the machinery that taught blood to behave like ownership." The chamber doors unlocked. Investigators entered from both passages. None looked toward Jaeho for permission. That was how everyone knew the Empire had truly ended. Miles's father attempted to step back into the investigator line, but Miles blocked him. The older man lowered his voice. "Everything you possess came from me." Miles removed his inherited ring and placed it in an evidence case. "That explains why none of it ever felt like mine." His father called him ungrateful. Miles did not argue. He signed the statement accepting responsibility for entering Nalia's life under false pretenses, stealing access to her home, and concealing the purpose of their relationship. He surrendered his inheritance and agreed to cooperate with every investigation attached to the program. He did not look at Nalia for rescue. That was the first apology she believed without needing to accept. Camille handed over the last access key connected to her family's network. She had already dissolved the engagement contract, but now she severed every corporate agreement that had made the arrangement possible. Miles asked whether she hated him. Camille considered him with the precision she once reserved for council negotiations. "No, hatred would require continuing the partnership." Naya covered a smile. The elder Arden was taken from the chamber beside Mira. He tried to blame her. Mira tried to call him a hired instrument. Their accusations only authenticated the conspiracy they had built together. Mira stopped in front of Jaeho. "I kept you alive." Jaeho looked at the woman who had removed terror from none of his memories, only the person who made him question her. "You kept the part of me that obeyed." For once, Mira had no language prepared for the difference. She turned to Zola. "He would have abandoned everything for you." Zola closed her fingers around the powerless pin. That was his choice to make. Investigators led Mira away. The false Amara remained on the testimony screen until independent protection officers reached her room. She removed the last piece of the imitation braid and placed it beside the replica hairpin. Her legal identity was restored under a sealed record. She agreed to testify about the people who changed her face and about the choices she made after they did. No one called her Amara again. Choi opened his hand and looked at the ring that had connected his family to the archive for 16 years. He placed it beside Miles's ring. "I resign from command." Jaeho nodded. "You will still testify." "I expected nothing less." Naya folded her arms. "The next time you decide to protect someone, there is a radical security procedure called making a phone call." Choi looked at her for several seconds. "I will request training." The laugh that escaped Nalia surprised her. It did not erase what Choi had done. It simply proved that truth had left enough room for breath. Naya approached her carefully. "I do not expect us to become what we were by tomorrow." "We cannot," Nalia answered. Naya nodded, accepting the boundary before it became punishment. "Coffee one day?" "One day." Camille stepped beside Naya. Neither woman asked Miles where he would go next. For the first time, his future was not the center of theirs. Amara stood near the council table with both daughters before her. "I am sorry," sounded too small, but she said it without adding because. She admitted that survival had become her excuse for every choice she feared explaining. She had hidden Nalia from Zola, Zola from Nalia, and herself from both of them. She had fought Mira's system while repeating its central belief that love allowed one person to decide what truth another could endure. Nalia touched the locket at her chest. "I do not know how to forgive 16 years. You do not owe me speed." Zola looked at Amara. "Or a daughter who returns exactly as you remember her." Amara's eyes filled. "I know." They agreed to no more secret routes, no vanished calls, and no plans built around one daughter's ignorance. Amara would enter protected medical care and testify fully. Nalia and Zola would receive every record she had kept. It was not reconciliation. It was the first honest beginning they had ever been offered. Nalia turned to her sister.
You said Jaeho gave you his empire. He did. You left out the part where you planned to destroy it.
Zola's mouth curved.
You had just discovered me. I wanted one dramatic entrance before family honesty ruined my reputation.
Nalia laughed again, then covered her mouth because tears had arrived with it. Zola stepped closer, but stopped before touching her. Nalia closed the distance. Their embrace was awkward for the first second and desperate for every second after. 2 lockets pressed together between them, their scratched hinges finally aligned without a machine forcing the contact. The marks formed one narrow line. Amara had scratched the first guide. Zola had completed both during the escape. The damage that once proved separation now showed where the sisters met. When they released each other, Jaeho remained several steps away. Zola faced him. His memory had returned enough to hold the rain, the locked laundry door, the archive corridor, and the promise he had made with his forehead against her hand. "I loved you," he said. "I know. I am sorry they made my absence feel like a choice." Zola's control weakened, but she did not look away. "I loved the boy who wanted to leave with me. I do not know the man who survived without remembering why." "You do not have to." The answer freed something in both of them. Zola opened her hand. The powerless succession pin rested between them. "Our marriage was real to us then. It is not a debt now." Jaeho bowed his head. She returned the pin, not as authority and not as a promise, but as evidence of what had been taken. He placed it in the investigator's case. Nothing remained between them that required ownership. Nalia waited until Zola walked to Amara before approaching him. Jaeho did not reach for her. "I loved her," he said. "I will not insult either of you by pretending I did not." Nalia's eyes burned. "And now?" "I love you. But love does not make your answer mine." She asked him the question she had asked on the night he first chose her before the cameras. "What do you want from me?" "A life where you can disagree with me, leave me, return to me, or refuse me without being hidden, watched, or managed. I want the truth before comfort. I want your choice, even when it is not me." The chamber had once demanded that Jaeho choose between love and power. Now there was no throne behind him and no pin above his heart. Nalia took his hand. She led him through the open council doors. Morning had broken over the estate. Cameras waited beyond the steps, but Jaeho did not tighten his fingers when the flashes began. He held her only as firmly as she held him. Behind them, Zola walked beside Amara in full daylight. No sister disappeared into shadow. No man released the woman he loved because people were watching. No inherited object decided who belonged to whom. Nalia looked at Jaeho, and this time the whole truth stood between their joined hands without becoming a cage. Drop your comment and comment the one emotion this ending left with you. Share it with someone who deserves to feel seen, and subscribe for the next complete love story.